What wedding moment made you think they are not going to last long? Two friends of mine got married, and when they gave their vows, the guy started laughing at the part about being faithful. Oops. I once watched a live stream of the wrong Vegas wedding. The link I was given for a friend's wedding was incorrect, and during the exchange of vows, the groom got to the part about being faithful, and the bride visibly and audibly chuckled. It was hilarious to watch, but I bet they didn't last long. Love that you sat and watched the wedding. A wedding's a wedding. This will do. Wow. You guys looked fantastic at the wedding. The groom and best man had a dancing routine for getting into the church ceremony, and they got nearly halfway through it, and I guess the groom felt they hadn't received much applause and wows from us the attendees and decided to go back to the entrance and start all over. Sigh. Why is no one having a good time? I specifically requested it. That's pretty cringe-worthy. People don't seem to be enjoying this. I'd better stop and start again from the beginning. I just remember the side eyes we were all giving each other. Also, I should add the person in charge of the music was the last to figure it out, so you can imagine the weird pause after the two men walked back to the church entrance with the music still going on and someone trying to tell the people at the front to start the song again. Absolute cringe. Groom got into a fist fight with the father of the bride. Split after 4 months. Context: groom and bride's dad. Actually, most people in these families, if I'm honest, have pretty aggressive drinking problems. Father-in-law has always hated him. I wasn't around for what actually set it off, but it ended when the bride got in the middle, got an elbow in the eye, and the happy couple left for the night. This was in rural Canada, not Letterkenny, but basically Letterkenny. I'd say the father-in-law won the fight though. The entire bridal party, including parents of the wedded couple, entering into a betting pool of how long the marriage would last. At the wedding reception, if I recall correctly, the best man won. Price is Right rules. At 14 months. Surely you confide in your friends or even your parents about the whole thing, but who am I to say? They were together since junior high, and would break up and reconcile every 3-6 months. Everyone was just sick of it. Friends and family. And the marriage, at age 19 in the summer between freshman and sophomore year at college, was obviously an attempt to force the relationship to stick. It did not, but at least no kids were involved. I should say the bridegroom did not participate. Everyone else did. That would have been glorious. Imagine the whole time the best friend was like, listen, you gotta hold out a little longer. I made a huge bet on this and I'm about to take home the cake. We go 50-50. That's like insider trading. The groom had a best woman instead of a best man. When the groom started off his speech by saying, "We all know I didn't want to get married, but we're here for bride and child we had together. 1 year, 3 months later they were finished. That is so sad." His third wedding, same venue and same after ceremony driving away vehicle as the first two. That is definitely a bad sign. Okay, look! Maybe he had one of those stamp cards, and the 10th one will be free. We can't judge. I'm imagining a sign out front that says, wedding for Chad and Sarah Jenny, Chad and Sarah Jenny Rhonda. I was kindly included in a last-minute +1 to the wedding of a family friend who I'd never met before. At the rehearsal dinner, or the German equivalent, the Polterabend, the guests smashed ceramic and porcelain items on the ground. I was fresh in Germany, so this was all pretty out of context and frightening, but my boyfriend explained that it's a tradition, reminding the couple that life is sometimes difficult and you have to work together to clean it up. The bride kind of half-heartedly motioned to the groom to sweep it up. He did a little bit, then just moved on to talk to his friends, leaving most of the shards strewn around the yard. Additionally, I don't think I saw the couple talk to each other once over the next 3 days of celebrations. It was a gorgeous wedding, and I'm so grateful that I was invited. Really good way to begin living in a new country, but it wasn't surprising to hear that they'd divorced a few years later. Oof, how symbolic. Yeah, I can't help but imagine that this is exactly why that tradition exists, and they just missed it entirely. Oof. When they disappeared for half an hour during the reception, they were both saving themselves for marriage and were desperate to bone down, which is a fine thing to want. But it turns out that was more or less the main reason they got married. They made it almost a year. My high school teacher told me a story of two people who waited for marriage too. In Utah, they have a massive peen problem and the husband definitely watched too much. He brought an outfit, a movie, toys, and I swear a whip for their wedding night. The wife burst into tears and locked herself in the bathroom for the entire night. My teacher's lesson was to talk to your partner about everything including Shrek's LOL. There was a similar problem on an agony aunt page I read once when the wife wrote in for advice. So apparently the bride and groom were both virgins and waited for marriage in accordance with their culture, with the groom clearly spending all that time on Pornhub getting wild expectations. The shy, religious bride expected that their wedding night would be a sacred coming together of souls, but the groom did not read the memo. He slapped her around, tried to do anal and asked to piss on her on their wedding night. The bride was, obviously, absolutely horrified and kept making excuses not to have Shreks with him again. He said he had a wonderful time and kept asking when they could have round two. She wrote into the agony aunt wondering what kind of deviant she had married. I felt very sorry for her. The groom took the stupid cake thing to an extreme. The bride had given him his bite and mashed a little on his chin or nose. He then took a piece and mashed it into her face so hard that I was expecting her to end up with a bloody nose. Cake and frosting got up her nose, in her eyes, down the front of her dress, etc. The bride had to go get cleaned up, had her makeup redone, and was ugly crying within an hour of saying, "I do." He didn't give a frick. Had a buddy. This was almost 30 years ago, by the way, whose girlfriend told him that if he mashed the cake in her face, it was over. She told him at least 10 times in my presence. Day of the wedding, his buddies had gotten to him by making the whip noise and saying he had to show her who wore the pants. She fed him his piece. He mashed her face. She walked out and had the marriage annulled. The bride told her bridesmaids that she didn't actually want to get married, multiple times. No one told the groom until after the divorce. Had a friend who did this. Kept telling me and other friends she wasn't sure she wanted to get married anymore and was having second thoughts. We all told her to call it off, but she went through with it anyway. They split 6 months later. I'm sure she got the "everyone has cold feet, it'll all be fine" talk despite there being a big difference between "am I doing the right thing? This is big and I really don't want this. I feel like it's a mistake." I was at the wedding of one of my mum's oldest friends and she clearly had more fun dancing with the best man after the wedding. Long story short, they dated for a while after the divorce. Your potential replacement is always closer than you think. I mean, he was the best man. Not directly related to the bride and groom. But I was at a wedding where the groom's mum was having a lot of fun dancing with the best man and they wound up leaving the wedding party to go bang. Needless to say, the wedding after party became awkward. At my friend's wedding after party, she came into the room and told everyone that they'd tried to consummate, but he couldn't because he was too drunk. Her family was very Italian and she basically cursed him to have to deal with that for the rest of their marriage. Yikes. Our pre-marriage counselor gave us the valuable life pro tip that wedding night Shreks is often underwhelming. You're both physically, mentally exhausted after one of the biggest days of your life. You're coming down from all kinds of stress emotions. Your stomach might be upset. And there's a good chance both of you will fall asleep as soon as you lay down. This really helps set reasonable expectations. Note: this probably applies regardless of if you've had Shreks before marriage or have alcohol at the reception. No judgment, offense intended. When the maid of honor professed her love for my brother during her toast at my brother's wedding, and her husband walked up to the head table, picked her up and carried her away before she could embarrass him further, they lasted about 3 months after that. My brother and his wife, on the other hand, are still happily married 20 years later. What the frick? Everyone knows you're supposed to burst through the church doors unannounced literally seconds before they are pronounced man and wife. Doing it at the reception is just tacky. Wow, that's a bold strategy. I mean, hell of a time to shoot your shot, but maybe don't be married when you do it. Had an old boss who was divorced. He told me once I should have known it wasn't going to last when the only happy moment I had on my wedding day was when I snuck out to smoke weed with my buddies in the parking lot. I was the best man at a wedding a few years back. At the rehearsal dinner, his future in-laws were treating him like crap. They were bossing him around, making him do crap, and talking down to him. They didn't let him hang out with his groomsmen afterwards while the bride went out and got drunk. They are now divorced. Knew a couple like this. The bride's dad was an actual gangster. Pretty scary individual. And he treated the groom like shoot. Kept commenting on the fact that the groom only had one kidney. Bride never backed him up either. Just laughed. They are divorced. What a weird thing to pick on someone for though. Ha! Look at all one kidney over there. What a loser. I think it was a veiled threat. Nice kidney you have there. Shame if something happened to the only bean you have left. I know a couple of good dialysis centers down the road. Good people. Dude, that is just wrong. Why would the dude even think of marrying her? When she went alone on her honeymoon, because she booked a trip to the Caribbean despite her newlywed husband having a severe sun allergy. My college roomie went on his honeymoon to Jamaica alone. The bride's family picked the resort and paid for everything. Only the bride refused to get on the plane at the literal gate, breaking down and crying and having panic attacks. Turns out this had happened every time before for sports trips and family vacations, but they thought for some reason this time it will work. She is married now, and planned a honeymoon on an island. Rather than throw away $10,000 in vacation, the groom went alone. He said it was great. His wife wasn't mad, but her family was. For some reason, they lasted nearly 5 years and split through a best of friends. I wonder if the new husband was prepared for it, and just said, "I'll head out."